I'm Stephen Shaw, STEPHENSHAW.
And Mr. Shaw, how are you employed?
I'm a hair and fiber examiner for the Federal Bureau of Investigation Laboratory.
And how long have you been employed in that capacity?
I've held my current position for approximately 6 years.
What educational background do you have that led you to your present position?
I have a Bachelor's of Science and a Master's of Science. Both degrees are in textile chemistry, and both degrees are from North Carolina State University.
After you obtaining your degrees, did you immediately go to work for the Federal Bureau of Investigation?
No, after getting my degrees, I was a research associate for the university for approximately 6 months. Then I took another job in the textile industry where I was a senior research associate for approximately 6 months, and then I began work at the FBI laboratory.
During your time with the FBI, did you have additional education through the FBI itself?
Yes, I did.
What type of training was that?
I received, to become a hair and fiber examiner, I received approximately a 1-year training program where I was under the direct guidance of qualified hair and fiber examiners. And during that time, I examined numerous hairs and numerous fibers, and I had to complete tests throughout my training program, including identification tests, matching tests, oral boards, as well as moot court exercises.
And how long, and after that year period of time, did you then become working independently as a hair and fiber examiner?
After completing that year of time, I began working independently as a hair and fiber examiner.
And have you previously testified as an expert in that area in courts of law in the United States?
Yes, I have.
Approximately how many times?
12 times.
And in how many different jurisdictions?
I've testified prior in Florida, in New York, Virgin Islands, California, Montana, Illinois, Virginia, are a few.
All right. This time, Your Honor, I would submit the witness as an expert in the area of forensic hair and fiber identification and analysis.
What says the defense?
No objections.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the witness will be accepted as an expert witness in the area of hair and fiber identification. You may continue, Mr. Ashton.
Sir, back in the middle part of 2008, you were working at the FBI lab at that point. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you become involved in doing a confirmation examination of a hair in the case involving Caylee Marie Anthony, which was designated as Q12, that Karen Korsberg Lowe had previously examined?
Yes.
Right. What's the purpose of that process of confirmation, as I think you call it?
Yeah, the confirmation process is really a quality assurance step to make sure anytime we have.
Apologize, Mr. Shaw. At this time, we would object and renew our previous motions and objections under Fry.
Based upon that objection would be overruled. You may continue. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So it's a part of our quality assurance procedure. So whenever we have an identification or we associate an association, we then have a second examiner to do an independent examination to see if they can reach the same conclusion or not.
Now, when you do that, do you already know the conclusions that the other examiner has found?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So in this case, were you looking to confirm the identification of apparent decomposition? Is that just that, or the comparison to the purported known hair as well?
It was a confirmation for the apparent decomposition as well as microscopic similarities to a hair collected from a hairbrush.
And did you confirm both the apparent decomposition and the microscopic similarity to the hair from the hairbrush?
Yes, I did.
Did there come a time later in 2008 when you were called upon to examine some additional evidence as to the same case.
Yes.
And what came into the laboratory? First of all, why did you do the second examination as opposed to Ms. Lowe?
Because Miss Lowe wasn't available at the time.
Now, what came into your laboratory? Were you submitted what is referred to as a hair mass?
Yes, I was.
If I could have States Exhibit 271, Madam Clerk. Let me show you States Exhibit 271 and ask if you recognize that as the item that we just referred to that was submitted to your laboratory.
I do recognize it.
And should that contain the hair mask that was submitted by Orange County Sheriff's Office and Medical Examiner's Office?
Yes, according to the laboratory markings, it should.
Now, what type of examination did you perform on, and you designated this Q59 for your purposes, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So what type of examination did you do on States Exhibit 271, your Q59?
I examined the hairs from the hair mass microscopically, and I also then compared those hairs to the hair previously reported as originating from the trunk of a vehicle.
Now, when you examined the hair mass, did you find evidence of apparent decomposition on the hair mass?
Yes.
Did you find a band similar to what you had seen on the Q12 hair in the hair mass?
There was a band just above the end of the root. It was not similar, I would say, to the hair in the trunk, the band itself. It was a band just above the root, and the root itself had sort of a brush-like appearance. So it's really a later stage of apparent decomposition than what was seen in the trunk.
So the hair in the trunk, did it still have, it had the band and still had the root? Do I understand that correctly?
It had, the hair in the trunk, yes, still had a band with root material below the band.
And the hairs in the Q59 had the band, but the root had a brush-like appearance?
That's correct.
And is that brush-like appearance associated with later stages of decomposition?
Yes.
Now, did you also compare the hairs in Q59, in essence, as a purported known sample of the victim's hair to the hair from Q59 to determine whether they were microscopically similar?
Yes, I did.
And what was the conclusion of that comparison?
The previously reported Q12 hair, Caucasian head hair exhibiting characteristics of apparent decomposition at the root end, exhibited the same microscopic characteristics as the Caucasian head hairs from the hair mass. Accordingly, this hair and the hair mass are consistent with originating from the same source. However, it should be noted that hairs are not a means of positive identification. In other words, I cannot say that a hair did originate from a person to the exclusion of all others. I can say it is consistent. It should also be noted that the hair mass itself is not a suitable known hair sample. In other words, I did not have hairs plucked from an individual's scalp, from a known individual's scalp.
And the reason you add that caveat is because obviously you as an examiner cannot testify that the hair mass came from the victim, just that all you know is it was found with the victim. Is that the correct assessment of your caveat?
We don't know, I don't know, the source of those hairs.
All right. Now, have you, in your work at the FBI, participated in a research project to further the scientific knowledge in the area of this decomposition artifact that we've been talking about?
I have, yes.
What type of research project have you been involved in?
I've been conducting a study that is still ongoing. I've just started writing the manuscript. I'm in that phase right now. So the preliminary results are 600 hairs stored in various locations. And these 600 hairs were collected from 15 living individuals, so 600 ante-mortem hairs. And the hairs, again, were stored in various conditions to include indoors on a windowsill, indoors buried in potting soil that was watered and fertilized weekly, indoors submerged in water, outdoors in a grassy area that received direct sunlight, outdoors in a wooded area that did not receive direct sunlight, and in 3 different vehicles. In the trunk of a vehicle that was used during the time periods, underneath the seat of a second vehicle that was also used during the time periods, and on the dash and in the trunk of a third vehicle that was not used during the time periods. And this vehicle was parked in a location where it could receive direct sunlight. The time periods varied anywhere from approximately a week to approximately 7 months. At the end of those time periods, I then examined hairs at the root end microscopically to determine changes, if there are microscopic changes at the root end. No hairs stored in the vehicles and no hairs indoors on the windowsill exhibited characteristics of apparent decomposition. Some of the hairs stored outdoors, most of the hairs buried in potting soil, and most of the hairs submerged in water did exhibit characteristics of apparent decomposition. And some of these characteristics are similar to characteristics we see in hairs removed post-mortem. However, no post-mortem banding was observed in any of these hairs. Okay, so they did exhibit some apparent decomposition, but no banding. I then set up a test where I included all hairs that had any possible changes at the root end in the test. I also included hairs known to be removed from deceased individuals, so known postmortem hairs. Those also were included in this test. The test was given to 2 different examiners not involved in the initial analysis, but 2 different examiners. And they were given 3 answer sheets total. They were each given an answer sheet to do their initial analysis, and they were asked to identify any hairs given to them that exhibited characteristics of apparent decomposition with postmortem banding. Besides their initial analysis answer sheet, they were also given a confirmed results answer sheet where they discussed their initial analysis to come up with one confirmed result. In the confirmed results, the hairs correctly identified all of the postmortem banded hairs and excluded all of the environmental hairs in this study as being banded. In their initial analysis, examiner 1 correctly identified all of the postmortem hairs that were banded, but also included one of the antemortem hairs, so one of the environmentally studied hairs in this study, as banded. Examiner 2 correctly, in his initial analysis, identified all of the postmortem banded hairs, but also identified one of the hairs, one of the antemortem hairs, as banded. So each examiner initially made an error in determining banding. With their confirmed results, they excluded those two environmentally stored hairs and only had the postmortem banded hairs as their confirmed result.
Let me clarify one thing on that. Did each of the 2, and again, was this test a blind test?
It was blind in that they didn't know the answers. They didn't know if any postmortem hairs were actually put into the test. They were aware that I had been doing a study on the environmental impact of hairs from living individuals, but that's all they knew.
All right. And just to clarify, one examiner in his initial examination picked out one hair as possible banding, and the other examiner in his initial examination picked out a different hair as possible banding. And when the two got together, they agreed that both should be excluded as postmortem banding. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Did you prepare a PowerPoint presentation to demonstrate the results of your study?
Yes, I did.
All right. Let me show you State's Exhibit QL for identification and ask you, is that the PowerPoint to demonstrate the study?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, for demonstrative purposes, I'd like to publish to the jury State's QL. I'm not moving it into evidence since it does not involve the evidence in this case.
Your Honor, may we approach, it's a disclosure issue. I apologize, Madam Court Reporter. I'm requesting that we do this in the form of a proffer, since we haven't had the opportunity to discuss this PowerPoint with the witness. It might be the optimal way of doing this.
Well, I'd rather not do a proffer because I mean, the witness has been deposed at length about the study. But if counsel has questions of him as they're looking at it, I don't have a problem with them asking them. Or we could just have him come over here and we can all sit down and go through it. The court can take a break, court reporter can take a break, and I don't have a problem with that at all.
It's however Your Honor wishes to proceed. We had no knowledge of this PowerPoint. Obviously, since we didn't have knowledge of it, we couldn't have discussed it with the witness. So,
Well,
whatever.
One at a time, Mr. Ashton.
Yes, sir.
Whichever way the court thinks is the most efficient and just way of proceeding, we're in agreement. But I'd certainly like to know what the witness will be describing and talking about as he goes through this PowerPoint.
Is it true that the defense has not been given this PowerPoint?
It is true we have not received it.
Just so, if I might respond to that.
Yes.
The actual PowerPoint, no. Everything in the PowerPoint, every photograph, yes. And that's my understanding, and Mr. Shaw can, let me just ask Mr. Shaw that. All the photographs in the PowerPoint have been provided to the defense, is that correct?
That's correct. They were provided to you.
And there's nothing in the PowerPoint but photographs. So there's no text, there's no discussion, anything like that.
More point, if I need to. I can clarify one more point if the court feels necessary. One, we just received these photographs when we walked in this morning. Two, if there are photographs that were previously disclosed, they're black and white photocopies, which is significantly different than something that is in color. Everything that they've been presenting is in color. If they plan on presenting in black and white, okay, not a problem. We don't need to proceed any further. But if they're planning on going in living color, there's a difference.
This is what I would do. I will give them opportunity to have them displayed. Now, if there's some questions, Ms. Sims and Mr. Baez, you want to ask of the witness, I will permit you to do that, and then we'll go from there.
Yes, sir.
You want to go to the next slide? Sure.
May I stand at the podium so I can address?
Yes, you may.
Actually, I can't see the monitor, so.
Isn't there a monitor on the podium?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So may I inquire with the witness, Your Honor?
Go ahead.
Mr. Shaw, can you please describe to us what we're looking at the screen right now?
Yes, these are hairs that were used in the study that I just described. What you see on this particular slide are hairs that were stored indoors on the windowsill for 233 days. Before, on the left-hand side, before it was stored on the windowsill, and after 233 days on the right-hand side.
Thank you, sir. We can proceed to the next slide. And this photograph, and this, this diagram here.
This also are hairs that were used in the study I just described, but on a vehicle dash, stored for 202 days. Again, a before shot on the left and an after photograph on the right-hand side.
would you describe the after photograph, the darkening in the shaft area of the photograph, as some form of decomposition?
I'm not sure what dark area you're referring to.
I'll show you in a second if I can. Oh, I can't. This one doesn't work.
You have to do that in front of the podium.
This area here.
No, that is the medulla, which is the third central portion of the hair. So it's not apparent decomposition.
What is the darkening there that we see?
That is the medulla. There's three structural components to hair: the cuticle that surrounds the hair. There's the cortex, which is underneath that cuticle, and then running through the center of the hair is the medulla.
So that's something natural in someone's hair.
Yes.
Okay. We can go to the next slide. And what are we looking at here, sir?
These are also hairs used in the study I just described. Hair stored in the trunk of a vehicle before on the left-hand side and after on the right-hand side.
Okay. All right. The next slide.
Additional hairs stored outdoors on the grassy area before on the left-hand side and after on the right-hand side.
Okay. Next photo.
Additional hairs stored in the wooded area before on the left-hand side and after on the right-hand side.
And the darkening at the root area, what would you classify that as on the after photos?
That is characteristics of apparent decomposition, but without a band.
Okay. We'll go to the next photo. And what does this describe, sir?
Hair stored outdoors in a wooded area before on the upper left-hand quadrant, and then 3 after shots following that one.
And the darkening near the root area, what would you describe that as?
It is characteristics of apparent decomposition, but again, not a band.
Okay. Next slide. And here?
This is, again, more hairs before on the left-hand side and after stored in an outdoor grassy area.
Okay. And the darkening at the root area?
It appears to be characteristics of apparent decomposition, but without a band.
Okay. Next photograph.
Additional hairs used in the study. These hairs on the left-hand side is before, and then on the right-hand side after. These hairs were stored in an outdoors grass area. Again, some apparent decomposition afterwards, but no band.
And when you refer to the banding, are you referring to the apparent decomposition reaching the entire width of the hair?
There's several things we look for in a band. The band has to be above the root or root bulb, and it has to be opaque, and it has to be a defined certain thickness and a certain length.
Okay. And so it has to be, what in here does not meet that qualification for a band?
It's not opaque. It's just some dark striations, but it's not opaque.
Other than that, it meets all of the other requirements.
It's also not clearly defined. Some of the striations run down into the root bulb, further down into the root.
Okay. All right, next slide.
This, again, are hairs stored in an outdoors wooded area, before on the left-hand side and after on the right-hand side.
And what is the darkening here?
That is characteristics of apparent decomposition, but not a band.
Okay, next slide.
Additional hairs submerged in water. Before on the upper left-hand quadrant, after on the right, upper left, and lower center portion of the slide.
And what would you characterize the after to look like?
As apparent decomposition, but without a band.
Okay. Next slide.
These are also hairs submerged in water. Before shot on the upper left-hand quadrant, after shots on the upper right-hand quadrant and lower center portion of the slide. And this hair also exhibits characteristics of apparent decomposition, but without a band.
Now, there are certain characteristics that appear to be different from those that are submerged in water. Can you account for the differences in those, or is that just an unknown phenomenon?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
There appears to be a differences between some of the hairs that are showing what apparent decomposition. Can you account for those differences?
In this study, the antemortem hairs?
Yes, in the antemortem hairs.
No, I don't know why in certain, the apparent decomposition occurs in certain locations versus other, or why the apparent decomposition looks different among the antemortem hairs.
And the difference could be the person, something in their genes that makes their hair change.
I don't know what the difference is.
Okay.
Could
But
be.
there are various factors that you may consider, correct?
There are various factors involved. I just don't know what would affect
Okay.
the apparent decomposition we're seeing in these antemortem hairs.
All right. Next slide. What do you have here, sir?
This is another hair submerged in water for 100 days. Before on the upper left-hand quadrant, after on the upper right-hand quadrant, and on the lower center quadrant.
And what do you have here?
It also is characteristics of apparent decomposition, but not what we would classify as a band.
Okay. Next slide.
Another images of hairs used in the study I described, submerged in water for 100 days, before on the left-hand side and after on the right-hand side.
Next slide. What do you have here, sir?
Additional hair submerged in water for 100 days, before on the left-hand side, afterwards on the right-hand side.
And is there any apparent decomposition here?
Yes, you can see that the root portion, the soft tissue on the root portion is smaller, and there are some striations also.
Next slide. What do you have here, sir?
Additional hairs buried in potting soil, before on the left-hand side and after on the right-hand side.
Now, prior to this case beginning, was there a distinction between apparent decomposition and the banding?
Yes.
Okay. So there were, I guess, under your protocols, a difference that you can make a call on what's postmortem banding and what's apparent decomposition.
Well, apparent decomposition is more of a broader category. It includes postmortem banding.
Okay. And is there a call that can be made that it is postmortem banding, or or is it always listed as apparent decomposition?
I'm sorry.
When you have a finding in a report, is it
Right.
always postmortem root banding, or always? Let me rephrase that. Is it always apparent decomposition, or are there sometimes decisions made to call things postmortem root banding?
In your analysis, at least for me, I would identify it as apparent decomposition, even if it was banding, and just include in my notes that it was banned.
Okay. Would those notes be included in the report?
No.
All right. Next. What do you show here, sir?
These are additional hairs buried in potting soil, and it's before on the left-hand side and after on the right-hand side.
Okay, next. What do you have here, sir?
Again, buried in potting soil for 100 days, before on the left-hand side and after on the right-hand side.
Okay, and I think we have one more. What do you have here, sir?
Again, buried in potting soil for 100 days, before on the left-hand side and after on the right-hand side.
And this also includes the apparent decomposition.
Yes, correct.
All right, I have no further questions, Judge.
There's another. No, there's more than one toddler.
Oh, okay. What do we have here, sir?
This is a hare stored in water for 17 days, exhibiting some characteristics of apparent decomposition. And I'll say that some of the characteristics that I'm saying when I call it apparent decomposition are not necessarily similar to hares we see to the decomposition we see in hares removed post-mortem. They're just characteristics of apparent decomposition. This one is one that was identified as banding by Examiner 1 in the study that I conducted.
Okay. And Examiner 2 did not find it to be.
That's correct.
Did they know they were working in actual casework or in a study?
They knew that it was a study.
Next slide, please.
This is a photograph of a hare that Examiner 2 also identified as banded in the initial analysis.
And the qualifications of these two examiners, are they trainees or are they very experienced?
No, they're trained hair and fiber examiners.
Okay, so they're just like yourself and Miss Lowe.
Yes, they're just as qualified as I am.
Okay. All right, next.
This is a hair, post-mortem hair that was included in the test.
And what are we looking at here exactly?
This is I don't know if I can-
What's the history of it, I guess?
a post-mortem band
Okay.
in this
And-
area.
And this was taken from a cadaver?
Right, a cadaver stored outside on the ground surface.
Okay. How long had the person been deceased? This one.
I don't know. I could look that up in my notes. I have it in the notes.
Do you have that readily available?
Yes.
Go ahead.
The person was placed, according to the notes, on January the 27th, 2004, and then the hair was collected on March the 5th of 2004.
And
So approximately 6 days.
they
I'm
have
sorry, a month and 6 days. Approximately over a month.
were they completely skeletonized?
I don't know. I don't believe so.
And in what atmospheric conditions was this person? And were
I don't-
they in the cold
I don't-
weather, warm climate?
It was in Tennessee. I don't know exactly what the conditions were.
Tennessee in January.
Yes.
Okay. Next.
This is another hair of a removed post-mortem from a cadaver stored outside on the ground surface.
Next. Let me go back. I'm sorry. Was this the same person? The last slide?
Yes, it was.
So it's the same person, two different types of postmortem banding characteristics?
Well, they're both post-mortem bands.
Okay. But the characteristics appear to be different, do they not?
One appears to be closer to the root than the other.
Okay. Next. What do we have here?
This is another postmortem hair removed from a cadaver stored inside a house.
Not the same person, is it?
No,
Okay. And where was this person at? In Tennessee as well?
yes,
And what were the climate conditions?
it was January again. I don't know if this was an air-conditioned house or not, or a heated house or not.
January in Tennessee?
Yes,
And you don't know the conditions about the atmospheric conditions?
no, I don't have that information with me.
Okay. Was it? So you don't know if this was an abandoned house or somewhere, or fortunately not a house that somebody lived in.
I would hope not. I don't know for sure.
Okay. Was it from a scene?
No,
crime scene or an
no? These
actual
are
study?
these are all tested hairs from the University of Tennessee, the Anthropological
Okay.
Center.
All right, next slide. What do we have here, sir?
This is a hair removed post-mortem from cadaver stored in the vehicle.
And what were the conditions of this person? Was this also in Tennessee?
Yes,
What month?
February to March.
Okay. And do you know if what the climate conditions of that were?
No, just the general month and location.
Okay. Next. What do we have here, sir?
Another cadaver stored inside a house in January.
In Tennessee.
Yes, correct.
And you don't know whether it was heated, air conditioned, or what the conditions.
No, I don't.
Next. What do you have here?
Another post-mortem hair with post-mortem banding from a cadaver outside on the ground surface in January and February in Tennessee.
Okay. And this is from what conditions again? Outside on the ground
Correct.
surface.
Correct.
Okay. Next.
Another hair post-mortem, removed post-mortem from cadaver stored outside on the ground.
And what do we have?
In February in Tennessee.
February in Tennessee.
Right.
Okay. Next.
Another hair from cadaver stored outside on the ground surface in January, Tennessee.
Okay. Next. What do we
Another hair from cadaver stored outside on the ground surface in January 2004 and February.
Okay. And next.
Another hair exhibiting postmortem banding from cadaver stored outside on the ground surface in February from Tennessee.
Okay. Next.
Hair removed from cadaver stored in a vehicle in February and March in Tennessee.
Next.
Another hair from a cadaver with postmortem banding stored inside a house in January 2005.
Okay. Now, sir, is that the end of it? Or are there any
I believe it
others?
is.
One more? That's just one more photograph or one more PowerPoint? Are you going to introduce 3 PowerPoints, Mr. Ash?
These are additional
Okay.
hairs. Sure.
If you feel they're helpful in your explanation, then it's up to you.
No, I really don't.
Okay, then we'll just use the two.
Okay. Now, sir, the climate is the number one factor when you take decomposition into consideration, is it not?
It's my understanding that climate can affect the rate of decomposition. That's really not my area of expertise, but that's my understanding.
And do you know what type of effect climate has on postmortem root banding?
Yes, we have studied that some.
Okay. And what have you studied, and what are your findings?
We've studied approximately over 20,000 hares from Tennessee, from over 20 individuals. And hares in warmer, and just in general, hares or cadavers in warmer climates will produce band earlier than hares in colder climate. Hares are moving in colder climates.
Okay. I have no further questions, Judge.
You may.
Mr. Shaw, all of these hairs are from adults that you have in these PowerPoints, correct?
I believe that's true. I don't have all the information with me, but I believe that's correct.
Okay. And the differences in a child's hair, there are differences between a child's hair and an adult's hair, correct?
We can't determine that a hair is from a child or from an adult. Depending on the age, sometimes the hair can be thinner. Sometimes the cuticle can be thinner, but we can't say that a hair came from a child by examining it or an adult.
Do you observe, in your experience, different characteristics in children's hair versus adults?
No, I wouldn't say there are.
What about that of a young child, a toddler?
A younger child, depending on how young, the hairs can be thinner.
Okay. And how many children's hairs did you use in this study?
Two
Just
2 test subjects.
Two test subjects.
Yeah, there was 15 individuals total,
Okay.
600 hairs total. Of the 15 individuals, 2 of those were children.
And were there differences in some of the findings?
No,
Did you expose the children's hairs to the same conditions that you exposed the ones that showed apparent decomposition,
yes.
including water?
I'll have to check and see.
Please do.
No, the children were used in one child was used in the first 4 locations. My last 4 location study that I did, it was all adults. So that include immersion water, burying potting soil. One of the studies in a wooded area, and one of the studies on a lawn.
And none of these,
In a grassy area.
and none of these subjects, all 15 of them, were ever exposed, their hairs were never exposed to any type of trash or garbage materials?
Not that I'm aware of.
No further questions.
I have no questions on the proper.
Mr. Baez?
Previous motions and objections. As to these 2 different PowerPoints, I think we have an issue of them being cumulative, number 1. Number 2, the conditions are completely different than that of this case, and we would argue that that creates an unfair prejudice. And in addition to that, we would consider this improper bolstering. To use hairs from a cadaver in Tennessee in the winter months of an adult that shows postmortem root banding to a case in Florida in the summertime at very early, what the state would argue would be very early stages of decomposition. We're talking apples and oranges here, Judge. I think there's no similarity, and it would be improper bolstering. You can't they're not even matching up the same scenarios. And even if it were, I think it would be improper bolstering.
What was the second ground that you said cumulative and you said something else before you got the improper bolstering?
403, Judge.
403 in what sense?
It's an unfair prejudice.
Unfair prejudice in what sense, Mr. Baez?
Well, we're given this not at the 11th hour, at the last second. We don't have the ability to conduct an independent study. This is a study being introduced, and it's apparent results of a study, and it was specifically designed for this case.
So your argument is not a 403, your argument is a Sixth Amendment right to confrontation.
And I would classify the unfair prejudice of this under 403 as well, Judge. I think there are multiple attacks on this study and this and these PowerPoints to be used. If we were talking about, if the witness wants to talk about generic, show one or two photographs as the previous examiner did to help show the jury to understand the differences, that we understand. But to do a complete and entire study with two PowerPoint presentations with approximately 30 photographs, I see numerous issues with this, Judge.
Mr. Shaw, when was this study that you are about to testify to provided to the state of Florida?
It was in March of 2011 that we told the state and the defense together that we had conducted a study.
What information was provided to the state and what information was provided to the defense, if you know, concerning this study? And when, if you know, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. We told them at that time, actually I wasn't present. It was Ms. Lowe that informed them that we had been doing a study at that time, and that's all. I don't know what she said at that time.
Was the study ever provided to the state of Florida in a written format or a digital format?
It was provided in a hard copy, in a written format, and along with these photographs.
Do you recall whether the photographs was provided to the state in black and white or in color?
They were provided in color.
Do you recall when that was provided to the state of Florida? I know you said they were advised in March of 2011.
Right.
I'm trying to ascertain when that written study and the color photographs were provided to the state.
We had a deposition in early May where the photographs at that point were discussed and were forwarded on to both the state and the defense.
Okay.
The written portion was more recent. I don't recall exactly when that entire case packet was FedExed to the state.
I can assist the court in that, if you like.
One more question. What you provided to the state in terms of photographs, were they in color or were they in black and white?
They were emailed to the Orlando field office. I don't know how they were printed off.
Okay, but were they provided in color or were they in black and white? Or if you don't know, you don't know.
When I emailed them, they were emailed in color.
Okay. All right, Mr. Ashton, can you,
And, sir, as a witness indicated in March of this year, we were informed, the state and the defense simultaneously, by Paula Wolf, Assistant General Counsel with the FBI, about the existence of the study. There was a telephone conference between myself, Mr. Baez, Ms. Wolf, and Ms. Lowe, in which the study was in general described. Mr. Shaw was set for deposition, which deposition was taken on May the 3rd by Ms. Sims and myself. During that, there was discussions about production of the photographs from the study. An arrangement was made over numerous emails over the succeeding weeks between Ms. Sims and Ms. Wolf, copied to me, about viewing the photographs. My understanding from these emails was that the photographs in question or requested were sent by email to the local FBI field office, and that counsel was allowed to come to the office and view the photographs. I was not there, presumably in color, but Ms. Sims can speak to that, whether they were in color or not. There was additional request to view additional photographs. I believe I was involved in the emails, but not really participating. Ms. Wolf, by the way, is here, General Counsel, if the court wants to have her represent the FBI in this matter. That I understand that Ms. Sims made another trip to the FBI field office, I think on the weekends. They opened it up for her to look at the photographs. At some point through this negotiation with the FBI, they agreed to produce copies of some reports, documents, and photographs, which they sent to me, which we then copied and passed along in discovery to Ms. Sims. The photographs we have are in color. This is the first I've heard that theirs were not. If that's the case, I was not aware of that until just a moment ago. But as far as I'm aware, the FBI has gone to great lengths to accommodate the defense in allowing them to see the photographs, to understand the full nature of this as yet incomplete research project. And I believe the written form that the witness was discussing was provided to the defense, I want to say early part of last week, but my copy doesn't actually have a date on it.
Ms. Sims, if you're gonna, both sides, if you're gonna talk, you need to turn the microphones on if you.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Okay.
My understanding, I wrote down that it was received on the 9th, which was last week, and we did not receive all of the PowerPoints, and what we received were black and white photographs that aren't particularly clear.
And there were 4 additional photographs that apparently were requested after that packet was received. Those were provided to me last night. I provided those 4 to Ms. Sims this morning by leaving them on the table. They are color copies. Again, I was not aware until a moment ago that the copies given were not acceptable. I was never informed until just now.
We were never provided color copies of anything until today. What happened on May the 3rd was I took Mr. Shaw's deposition. I had previously requested all photographs.
Slow down, Ms. Sims.
Okay, I'm sorry. I had previously requested that all photographs and data having to do with the experiment be brought to the deposition. I was not advised that they would not be all of them produced. In the, I guess 2/3 through the deposition, some of the photographs were sent to the field office so that I could look at them. But I was then told at that deposition that Mr. Shaw did not have all of the photographs. I went to the FBI to look at the color photographs that were provided that I was not permitted to copy, and look at the report that I was not permitted to copy, and thereafter was advised that there were additional photographs, I believe, that Mr. Shaw took with his cell phone. So I went back to the FBI. I was still not permitted to make color copies of the photographs, take copies of anything. And when I requested the ability to speak to Mr. Shaw through Ms. Wolf, that was not able to be done. So I have not had the opportunity to cross-examine Mr. Shaw with regard to the actual data, the hard copies of the paperwork involving this experiment, to determine if it meets Fry standards. And I would object based on Fry issues as well, because that has not been established. This is an experiment, and it hasn't been established that the methods are reproducible. But I was never given any copies for me to keep or take, and I requested multiple times of the colored.
The FBI indicated that because this was an ongoing research project, that they could not release unpublished data. But they have gone to incredible lengths to allow counsel to view these photos. And I think counsel has not indicated that there's any photograph here she hasn't seen through this process. And I think that is probably an essential issue. I believe she has seen all of these photographs. So at any rate, that's all I have, unless the court wants to hear from General Counsel Wolf, who's here.
Doc, just 1 second. Mr. Ashton, before Mr. Baez, would you address the issue of improper bolstering?
Your Honor, an issue has been raised by the defense through the testimony and cross-examination of Ms. Lowe as to whether this post-mortem artifact can be created by something other than the contact of the hair with a decomposing human body. This is simply further scientific research to answer that question. Bolstering, as I understand the term, would refer to an expert using a published article by someone else during their direct testimony to bolster their own opinion. This is an example of original research by this witness to answer the scientific question of whether this particular postmortem artifact can be created by something other than its contact with a decomposing human body. So I do not believe that this would constitute bolstering, and part of bolstering is a hearsay issue. You know, you're talking about what someone else says. This expert is talking about his own research and the outcomes of that research thus far.
Mr. Baez?
Yes, we brought this to the court's attention back in March, and we had a concern then. And the concern was that we find ourselves in the middle of trial and an expert takes the stand and we're talking about things that we haven't had the ability to have an independent examination of under 3.220, I believe 1J. And here we are towards near the end of the state's case, where we're talking about a study that we have done every single thing we can, going to the FBI office on Saturday, and the FBI has been very accommodating. There's no doubt about that. There's been absolute and complete 100% cooperation from the FBI. However, that still doesn't take us away from, we picked a jury in this case, we've dealt with opening statements as well as numerous witnesses, cross-examination of another witness, and then here we are talking about and showing photographs from approximately 30 photographs of a study that we had limited exposure to. And that's where we are. Now, if that's fair, I'll accept the court's ruling, but I think under the multiple areas that we've laid out, how we've brought it to the court's attention, how we've been trying to stay even in the middle of jury selection and preparing for trial and actually trying this case, we've been dealing with the FBI to try and get caught up. So the court cannot come to us and say, well, you had an opportunity to do something and you didn't do anything about it. In fact, it's the contrary. We have gone, I haven't been able to attend these, but fortunately, Ms. Sims has. But these are the steps that we've taken. And again, we're near the end of the state's case, and we get this stuff at the last minute. This is something that is not peer-reviewed. This is a study that was specifically designed for this case. If the court wishes to inquire with the witness, this began after the deposition was taken of Mr. Shaw. In this case, when we went to Washington, Mr. Ashton and myself.
May I add 2 points, Jim? If
You
Mr.
may.
Weiss is done. The first point is that the FBI had offered to transmit these materials to the FBI field office in the location of the defense's expert so that they could examine it. And I understand that the defense did not take them up on that, so there has been an opportunity for their expert to examine this material. Second is this, and we will get testimony from the witness on this. This study was contemplated before the deposition in this case. He will acknowledge that obviously the deposition spurred him on to get started with it, or words to that effect, but this was started because of an article raising the issue and indicating that additional research needed to be done. So to say it was done for this case is absolutely not true, though the case did have some inspiration for it. That's all I wanted to say.
Anything else from the defense? Okay. The defendant in this case is charged by indictment with the crimes of murder in the first degree, aggravated child abuse, aggravated manslaughter of a child, and 4 counts of providing false information to a law enforcement officer. The state has indicated by notice filed that they seek the ultimate sanction, in this case, death by lethal injection upon the defendant if the defendant is convicted of the crime of murder in the first degree. Rule 3.220 specifically provides the state of Florida with the specific obligation to provide certain things to the defendant. It is not the FBI's sole responsibility to provide particular items. The Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution, made applicable to the states via the 14th Amendment, provides that in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to confront the witnesses against him or her. There was no objection lodged at Mr. Shaw's testimony dealing with the particular study, but the court does find it troubling that the state at the 9th hour provides a PowerPoint with color photographs that was not provided to the defense. Therefore, the court will not permit the utilization of the PowerPoint since it was not provided to the defense. Since there was no objection to his testimony thus far to the study, and he has testified to his study, then the record will stay as it is, but the court will not permit the utilization of the PowerPoint. Simply, we cannot simply say that it's the FBI's study, and that they have a right to disseminate it when they want to, which may be true. But if they want to disseminate the study when they want to, don't expect to use it in a court of law when they want to or when you want to. It is the state of Florida who is the proponent and will be presenting this evidence, and it is the state of Florida's obligation, not the Federal Bureau of Investigation, to decide when they want to let something go and when they don't want to let something go, particularly when one wants to initiate the ultimate sanction given by law. Therefore, the court will sustain the objection to the use of the PowerPoint. We will take a 5-minute recess so the attorneys and court reporter refresh themselves. But since there was no objection to that particular testimony, then you can continue, but we will not allow the PowerPoint to be used since it is quite evident that depositions were taken dealing with the study. We'll be in recess for 5 minutes.
May I ask you one point of clarification?
Yes, sir.
So the court's indicating none of the photographs that are contained in the PowerPoint should be used.
Right.
Okay.
Now,
That's fine.
the flip side to that now is if the defense opens the door and start talking about where are the photographs, then that may reopen the issue for the court to let it in. So you cannot use a shield and turn it into a sword. We'll be in recess for 5 minutes. You may be seated.
Your Honor, may I just clarify something for the record?
Yes.
I would note for the record at 9:06 a.m., I did object. And in addition to that, I also renewed our previous motions and objections under Fry as well. I believe in March, when we had this issue come up, we also objected. And I just wanted to clarify that for the record, Judge.
Your previous objections that you objected dealt with Fry. And we had a hearing on the Fry issue. The basis of my ruling, you made a couple of more additional objections. There were cumulative, 403, which was undue prejudice and improper bolstering. The court's ruling was based upon the fact of a Sixth Amendment issue dealing with an exhibit that you, one, had not seen, two, that the items that were provided to you in black and white, and these are all color exhibits where color is not a sub-issue. That in order to intelligently evaluate these particular exhibits, black and white photographs would be patently unfair. So the court struck the particular exhibit. You have had an opportunity to take the deposition of the FBI agent. You've had an opportunity to look at the study, I presume, and you've had other numerous opportunities to do that. You have not outlined nor pointed out anything that this gentleman, Mr. Shaw, has testified to that you did not know in deposition, or you could not deal with this particular issue of post-mortem hair banding. So that was my ruling. This court felt that this exhibit, even though it was a demonstrative exhibit, it did put the defense at a severe disadvantage by not having an opportunity to view it ahead of time. So that's why I quote, one, I overrule the objection to the testimony about the study, but I disallowed the use of the exhibit. You're not saying now that you did not have an opportunity to take Mr. Shaw's deposition.
No, sir.
And is there anything that he has testified to that's not contained in his deposition?
The only issue, Judge, is that we could not depose him after we had viewed what was turned over to us on, what's this?
And if you had been given that opportunity, what information you would have hoped to glean from an additional deposition that you do not already know? You can consult with your colleagues. You may.
We wanted to be able to inquire based on what we were observing and ask him more questions about the study.
The problem with that is what we don't know is a wide universe of things that we don't know. As both sides, the state and the defense, you have to be able to show some type of prejudice. Going back to Brady versus Maryland, in all the line of cases dealing with not having information, a Richardson inquiry, you must be able to show a prejudice as a result. It's not that I don't know, because I don't know translates into nothing.
Well, I could certainly say that we wouldn't have been able to duplicate any of the issues that would come up with the study with our own independent expert. That would certainly be one that I don't think we could argue with.
If we go back in time to when we were talking about this study originally, one of the things I indicated was that unfortunately throughout this country and throughout the world, there are scientific studies that spring up and results that occur each and every day. So the possibility that you could not replicate or duplicate is not a basis for an objection. Now, I know of no case that stands for the proposition that you've just cited. Now, if there's one, I'm all ears to listen to it.
I think there's very limited circumstances where something like this would occur at the end of the state's case. So I would probably agree with that assessment.
Okay. So that was my ruling, and I apologize for not making it clear earlier, but that was the basis of my ruling. Anything else, folks, before we continue?
Not from the state of Florida.
Okay, let's return to jury. State recognized presence of jury.
Yes, sir.
Defense,
Yes, sir, we do.
you may continue, Mr. Ashton.
Mr. Shaw, we were discussing the study that you have performed. Let me go back and ask you, what caused you to become interested in doing a study like this? What was the inspiration for that?
It really was started because of a thesis that I came across at John Jay College, where they had taken hairs from living individuals and placed them in soil and in water, and had gotten decomposition in those hairs at the root end, or apparent decomposition. And it was suggested in that study that these hairs, additional research is needed, and that these hairs be compared, or hairs like them compared to post-mortem hairs. And so that's what I did.
So the thesis study found some sort of artifact in hairs from live people in those environmental conditions, but suggested that further study need to be done comparing them to actual postmortem hairs.
That's correct.
Now, did this particular case, your involvement in this particular case, have any, give you any additional interest in doing this study?
I think I probably would have done this study anyway, just not when I did. I think it was more of a priority because of this case.
Because of the issues in this case.
Correct.
Now, was the purpose, if you can put it in one line for us, what was the purpose of the study? What were you trying to figure out?
I was trying to recreate banding in hairs from living individuals.
Now, do hairs even that are not connected to living individuals still decompose in some respect?
Yes, they can if they're exposed.
Was the purpose to determine whether this particular artifact of decomposition could come from a live person's hair? Was that what you were looking for?
That's correct.
And again, how did you get the hairs for the study?
I went through an approval process to collect the hair samples, and then I asked for volunteers to volunteer their hair samples.
And
Request that this testimony be limited. Lack of disclosure. We don't have a copy of what he's testifying about.
Objection overruled.
again, how many individuals did you take hair samples from?
I took hair samples from, I received hair samples from 18 individuals. I used 15 in this study.
And were these hairs that were actually pulled from the volunteer individuals?
Yes, correct.
What were the gender distribution of these individuals?
Males and females.
And what were the age ranges of the individuals?
The youngest was 3. The oldest was, I believe, 53. I may have to check. It's 52 or 53.
In their 50s?
Yes.
Okay. And what variety of environmental conditions did you expose these hairs to in order to do this study?
Indoors on a windowsill, indoors buried in potting soil with plants that were watered and fertilized, indoors submerged in water, outdoors in an area exposed to sunlight, outdoors in a wooded area not exposed to sunlight, and in 3 different vehicles. In the trunk of a vehicle that was used during the time period, underneath the seat of a second vehicle that was also used during the time period, and on the dash in the trunk of a third vehicle that was not used during the time period and was parked, remained stationary throughout the time periods and was parked in direct sunlight.
When you say used during the time period, do you mean someone's vehicle that was actually used on a daily basis?
Correct. I mean, someone continued about their normal use with the hairs in their location.
And how did you, place the hairs or isolate them so that they would be undisturbed for the study, like in the cars, for instance?
I used tape to fold over the distal ends, the tip ends of the hairs, leaving the proximal or root end of the hairs exposed. And then I gave these hairs to individuals to place in the vehicles and told them, not to clean their vehicle or anything, but just place these hairs as they are, as their vehicle is, or whatever the conditions, however they exist.
All right. And did you check the hairs at intervals as to each environmental condition, or just at the end?
I would check sort of an earlier time period, so around 1 to 4 weeks, and then I would check at a longer time period. So the ones collected at a shorter time period were collected and examined. There were additional hairs that were not disturbed, and those were placed between 3 months and approximately 7 months.
Is the the difference between what you refer to as a postmortem banding and other types of decomposition, a subtle difference?
Overruled.
In my opinion, it's an obvious difference.
And in your study, when you examined all of these hairs from all of these different environmental conditions from live people, did you find any that, in your opinion, would qualify as postmortem banding?
No, I did not.
Now, you discussed a blind study that you did of some of these hairs and the outcome of that. Tell us about that.
Yes, I included all the hairs with any possible change at the root end into this test, as well as hairs known to be removed from deceased individuals. They were also included in the same test. And the test was given to 2 different examiners who were asked to identify any hairs exhibiting characteristics of apparent decomposition with postmortem banding. They were given 3 answer sheets total, an answer sheet each for their initial analysis, and then a confirmed results answer sheet where they discussed their initial analysis to come up with one confirmed result. In examiner 1's initial analysis, he correctly identified all the postmortem banded hairs, but also identified an antemortem hair, so one of the hairs in this study, as banded.
Let me ask you a question about it before you go on. So this examiner number 1 picked out one of the hairs that was from a live person as initially indicating it might have postmortem banding. Do I have that right?
Correct.
Okay. And how about the other examiner?
The second examiner also correctly identified all the postmortem banded hairs, and also in his initial analysis identified one of the antemortem hairs in this study as banded.
But did he identify the same one that the first examiner had identified?
No, they were different hairs stored under the same conditions, but different hairs. And so in their final, when they discuss and they come up with one confirmed results, they excluded those 2 hairs.
Now, that coming together, that conferencing, is that something that examiners would do in a real case if they disagreed on a call?
Yes.
So that basically, did that imitate the real world environment of how examiners come to decisions?
It's similar.
So in the end, they agreed that neither was postmortem banding. Is that?
That's correct.
Now, in this study, did you find hairs with apparent decomposition?
Yes.
And is postmortem banding a sort of a specific subset of various artifacts of decomposition of a hair?
Yes, it is.
So while you found decomposition in the hairs, did you find any that had postmortem banding?
Not in the study, no.
Now, did you also bring with us today a copy of a photograph, a digital copy of a photograph of the actual Q12 hair that you examined as a confirming examiner with Ms. Lowe back in 2008?
Yes.
Right. QM.
What says the defense?
No objections.
To be received in evidence, the state's number.
301.
May I publish, Your Honor?
You may.
Mr. Shaw, you see the state's exhibit 301 that's on screen in front of you.
Yes, I do.
And is that the photograph of the particular hair, which is designated Q12 in this case?
Yes.
May I publish it?
You may publish.
Okay, now that we have the actual photograph in front of us, can you show the jury the postmortem band that you saw in this case and upon your confirming examination?
Sure. The band is in between these two lines, so that dark opaque area above the root.
And is that a fairly classic example of postmortem banding?
Overall?
It's what I would identify as postmortem banding. Yes, it's a band above the root, a root bulb.
And again, is that artifact we see in this photograph, was that seen in any of the photographs of in your study involving live persons?
No, it was not.
No further questions.
Motion to strike would be denied. Cross-examination.
May it please the court,
You may proceed, Mr. Baez.
Mr. Ashton. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Mr. Shaw.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
Very good.
I want to ask you just a few questions about, first off, the hair that you observed in this case, the Q12, the one we saw the photograph. You testified that when you got the 59, Q59, which was the hair mat from Suburban Drive, that the characteristics were not similar, correct?
What I was speaking of is the characteristics of the root portion itself. I did not do a side-by-side comparison of the root portions, but the hair from the trunk had root material below the band. The hairs in the hair mass had a dark band just above the end of the root, but it had more of a brush-like, it's what I would classify as a brush-like appearance to it.
So it was a different appearance to you,
Yes,
and that's why you testified that you would not say it's similar.
speaking just about the root portions, that's correct, they were dissimilar.
Okay, and when you observed and you did this study, you were prompted to do it based on the thesis from John Jay College, the graduate student, correct?
That's correct.
And this study found live people to have apparent decomposition and postmortem root banding, did it not? From live people.
No, they did not make that conclusion. They refer to some of their changes as fraying, darkening, and they did refer to some of their changes as banding, but they indicated it was a band further down into the root, so closer to the end of the root than postmortem is observed.
Okay. And that would be the one you would find similar from, that description would best fit the description of the Q59 sample that you examined?
It's closer to that, but what they were seeing is decomposition in the actual root material itself. The hair mass did not have much of any root material remaining. It was mostly just a shaft with the band just above the end of the hair.
Okay. Now, the study that you have, and from what you've also seen in your experience, you've seen darkening near the root, or actually on the root, correct? From live people?
In this study, down into the root bulb, yes.
Okay. And you've also seen it further up the hair, correct?
We've seen striations further up the hair.
Okay. And I know in your testimony, you claim that the difference is obvious between what you call apparent decomposition and postmortem root banding, right?
Correct. Well, I'm sorry. Apparent decomposition is an umbrella of different types of decomposition that we see. As far as apparent decomposition removed from individuals after they have deceased, postmortem banding is one of the types of apparent decomposition that we see.
It's a broader term.
Apparent decomposition is a broader term. Yes,
Okay.
correct.
And that's what Ms. Lowe indicated in her report, that there was apparent decomposition, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you had mentioned that the differences, of course, are obvious to you.
Yes.
Okay. But they weren't quite obvious to the examiners that assisted you in the study, correct?
Correct. In their initial analysis, they did identify one of the antemortem hairs each as banded.
So what we're really talking about when you look at some darkening, and let's take this step by step. You get a hair, you inspect it under a microscope, correct?
Correct. I examine it using a microscope.
And you make a call. You make a decision. You give your opinion.
Correct. We examine the hair and the characteristics that are present, and based on our training and our experience, we reach conclusions.
Okay. And when these two different examiners on two different hairs gave their opinion, they were wrong.
Correct. They did commit errors.
Okay. And when we say they were wrong, we're really just saying that they said what was banding is different than what you say is banding, correct?
No, that's incorrect. They realized between themselves they made errors in their initial analysis and were able to exclude with the confirmed results, we're able to exclude those two hairs.
Let me see if I can redo the question, because I'm not certain I asked you this correctly.
Sustain, rephrase your question.
Let me rephrase this, sir.
Sure.
You don't know if postmortem root banding is exclusively from people who are deceased, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you can never testify in a court of law to such a fact.
That's correct.
Okay. So when someone says this is postmortem root banding, they're not saying it's from a dead person, correct?
That's correct. Not
Okay.
exclusively.
So that's what I meant when I said the person who made the call, they were wrong according to what you consider postmortem root banding.
Well, not just what I consider postmortem root banding, but also the two of them. I mean, once they did initial analysis and discussions, they excluded those hairs.
Okay, let me take this step by step. There's examiner A and examiner B, correct?
Correct.
And these are people who are just as qualified as you are.
Yes, that's correct.
They have the same training you go through,
That's correct.
and they have the same amount of experience as you do.
No,
More?
less.
Less? Okay. And why did you choose someone for your study with less experience?
They were two examiners that were not involved in my initial analysis of these hairs.
Okay.
So no-
and they have observed the same characteristics in other hairs.
I'm sorry, can you clarify that?
They have, examiner A and examiner B have both seen apparent decomposition in hairs. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And they've also seen what is called postmortem root banding in hairs.
Yes.
So when examiner A inspected a hair and found postmortem root banding, his opinion from that inspection is different from what you would say is postmortem root banding.
In that initial analysis, that's correct.
Okay. And when examiner B did the examination and found postmortem root banding, his opinion is different than what your opinion would be.
Correct. In that initial analysis, that's correct.
Okay. Now, this is still a very ongoing area of forensic science, is it not?
There's still research being done. I mean, I'm conducting research myself. It's pretty well established discipline, but it's mostly, for the most part, based on the experience of hair examiners and observing hairs known to be from deceased individuals, hairs known to be from living individuals and noticing these differences.
Now, you've never testified in a court of law about postmortem root banding, have you, sir?
I have not.
Okay. And this is your very first time in the United States testifying to such a thing.
That's correct.
And when you, after you submitted a deposition in this case, correct?
I did.
I was present,
Yes.
and Mr. Ashton was present,
Yes.
and this occurred in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Okay, and subsequent to us taking your deposition, you submitted for an approval of a validation study of postmortem root banding, did you not?
That's correct.
And in that submission, you requested approval for this project to be expedited.
Yes, that's right.
And that is in order for it to be complete before trial.
Yes, correct.
And this was subsequent to you giving your opinion in this case.
It was after the deposition.
Yes. And after also reports that you've submitted in this case.
Yes, that's correct.
So to sum it up, you wrote your report, correct? Is that a
Correct.
yes?
Correct.
You have to say yes for the court report.
Sure.
And you testified under oath,
Correct.
and then you did a validation study for postmortem root banding.
That's correct. The postmortem root banding was already what I would consider valid. It was based primarily on experience. Not a lot of research studies have gone into studying the effects of environmental hairs on antemortem. So that's why I did look into that, especially after coming across the thesis from John Jay College.
And a huge part of that, what's established, is that you cannot say postmortem root banding comes from a dead person.
That's correct.
And from what you observed, even in your own study, after you gave your opinions in this case, was that subjecting hairs to different environments can alter the appearance of a hair to include darkening on the hair, correct?
You can get darkening on the hair, yes.
To the point where even a trained forensic examiner would call it postmortem root banding.
That's what occurred in their initial analysis, correct.
Now, again, what you received in this case was only one hair.
I'm sorry.
From, the Q12 and what was given to you initially was only one hair.
Correct.
And in your experience, human beings shed many hairs all the time.
Yes, they do shed. We shed on average around 100 hairs per day. Most of the hairs, though, that are shed are naturally shed hairs that have a club-like appearance to them.
And then sometimes someone brushes their hair or something happens and someone's hair will stick on some clothing, right?
Correct.
Okay. And one of the reasons you have a job is because hairs are found everywhere at scenes, correct?
Yes, correct.
In fact, it's one of the most frequent things that are left at a scene.
We see hairs at scenes all the time.
And a lot of these hairs aren't coming off of someone pulling hair or brushing their hair or anything like that. There are things called transfer, correct?
Correct.
And when we say transfer, we're referring to I have some contact with you. Somehow your hair ends up on my jacket sleeve, and I could transfer it somewhere else, correct?
Correct. That's called an indirect transfer.
Okay. And also called secondary transfer.
Yes.
Okay. Other transfer would be my own hair is on me somehow, somewhere, and I come into contact with something, and that sheds a hair.
Yes, that's correct.
Correct. And the likelihood of transfer, or saying if you only find one hair, that is consistent with transfer, is it not?
I'm sorry. Can you clarify that?
if I have one hair that I leave at a crime scene, and that hair is there, doesn't necessarily mean the person was there, does it?
That's correct. I can't tell how that hair got to that location.
And the fact that you would find one hair at a scene and not a bunch of hairs, that is consistent with transfer, is it not, sir?
I'm sorry, can you clarify
Sure.
that?
No, I'll rephrase the question, no problem. If you find multiple hairs, numerous hairs, that's not as consistent with transfer as much as if you only find one hair, correct?
Well, finding any hairs separate from a person's scalp would be a transfer.
It would be consistent with transfer, correct?
Finding any hairs in a location other than the person's scalp would indicate a transfer occurred.
And the likelihood is even increased more so if you only find one hair, correct?
No, it's a transfer, whether it's one hair or many hairs.
What I mean, sir, is rather than the actual person being at that location, that's what I'm referring to. I know that they're all considered transfer, but generally speaking, as opposed to the person actually being at that location, it is more consistent with transfer if you just find one hair. Wouldn't you agree?
So direct transfer.
Correct.
It may indicate that. I mean, again, we don't know, even from a single hair, how it got to that location, whether it was directly transferred, meaning it went directly from the source to that location, or indirectly transferred, meaning it went to another intermediate object and then to that case, and then to that location.
And to conclude on your study, the environmental conditions were completely different from your study than they weren't done in Florida, were they?
No, they were not.
Where were they done, sir?
They were conducted around Quantico, Virginia,
Okay. What time of the year?
between the months of August and April.
Get pretty cold up there during those months?
It does.
And of course, climate and heat is the biggest factor that speeds up the decomposition process, does it not?
That's my understanding.
Heat plays a major role in decomposition, does it not, sir?
My understanding is that heat can increase the rate of decomposition, but that's really not my area of expertise.
Thank you, sir.
Any redirect?
Just a couple of questions, sir. The brush-like appearance that counsel asked you about that distinguished the Q59 hairs found at the scene of the body and the Q12 hair from the trunk, is that an indicator of more advanced decomposition?
Yes, the hair mass and the brush-like appearance is an indicator of further decomposition.
The two hairs that Mr. Baez spent some time speaking to you about that initial examiners included as banding and then excluded, what were the environmental conditions under which those two hairs were maintained?
They were both submerged in water for approximately 17 days.
So neither one of those hairs was in the trunk of a car.
That's correct.
The Q12 hair that counsel was asking you about, he talked about shed hairs. Was Q12 a shed hair?
No, Q12 was an anagen or stretched root hair, which would indicate some force was required to remove that hair.
In all of, and counsel correctly pointed out that you see hairs all the time from crime scenes, correct?
Yes,
Over your career, would it be a fair statement that you've seen thousands of hairs?
that's fair, yes.
Aside from this particular case, the Q12 hair, have you ever seen a hair with the decomp band that didn't come from a corpse?
No, I have not.
No further questions.
Recrosses to those issues alone.
My last question that Mr. Ashton asked you, You've only this is the first time you've testified about this topic, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And are you aware of the thesis that was conducted that you based this study on? The underlying conclusion?
I've read it. I'm familiar with it.
Okay. Are you aware of the conclusion that
Objection, hearsay, non-authoritative. Approach, I can explain more.
You may. You may proceed, Mr. Baez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Shaw, just 2 quick points that I'd like to touch upon. Based on your studies and experience, it is true that environmental effects could cause confusion in identifying or misidentifying postmortem root bandings, correct?
Without proper training, there is that possibility.
Now, when you testified about the type of root on the Q12 hair, and you said that some force would have had to been used, that doesn't mean that someone pulled that hair out, correct?
Not necessarily, no.
In fact, it could have come out through a brush.
It could have.
Yes, and numerous other ways as well, correct?
Correct.
No further questions.
One follow-up?
Yes, sir.
Would moving a dead body be one of those ways that the hair could have been pulled out?
It could, yes.
No further questions.
May the witness be excused.
Yes, sir.